Hi everyone. Today we are revisiting our exponential functions and we're going to be talking about domain and range. I know that is not everyone's favorite topic, so I apologize. We are going to spend quite a few days talking about domain and range of these exponential functions, so hopefully it gets easier each day you listen to these videos. Okay, so first thing I wanted to revisit was our equation that you've been kind of used to, y equals a times b to the x. Now, every problem we've looked at so far, the a value has been bigger than 0, meaning that a has been a positive number. Like in this example, my a is a positive number. So as long as the a is a positive number, growth is when it goes up from left to right, and decay is when it goes down from left to right. If this a ever becomes negative, then it's going to flip. Remember how with the parabolas, if there was a negative in front, it flipped upside down? So if this ends up being a negative number, this a, this graph will flip upside down and it'll look something like this. And if the decay graph flipped upside down, then it would look something like this. Okay, so just reminding you, growth is when your b is bigger than 1, and decay is when your b is between 0 and 1. So today we're going to be talking more about this guy called an asymptote. All right. So as long as there's no plus or minus behind the equation, the asymptote is always going to be the x-axis. So as long as the equation is some number times something raised to the x, nothing back behind it, the asymptote will always be the x-axis, meaning the graph comes really, really close to touching the x-axis, but it's not allowed to touch it or cross it. Remember, it's like an electric fence. So if you get down and you touch it, you're going to get zapped. Okay? Now, I want to know the equation to this guy. Remember, this is a horizontal line, so he's a hoy, and all hoys are y equals, and what's your y value? Everywhere, here, 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 here. 0. So as long as your equation does not have a plus or a minus in the back, your horizontal asymptote is always going to be y equals 0. All right, domain. This graph goes forever to the left, forever to the right. So does this guy. Forever to the left, forever to the right. So the domain is all real numbers. Now range is a little bit different. So I'm going to talk about what my y is coming close to approaching. So my y, maybe it's a 10 up here, and then 9, and 8, and 7, and 6, and 2, and 1. And as your y comes down, it's getting really, really close to touching the x-axis. And I know that my y value is 0 on the x-axis. So my graph is coming really, really close to the y being a 0, but it's never going to touch it. So I'm not going to put an equal sign because it's not going to touch the 0. And then when it goes this way, what happens to your y's when you go this way? They get greater. Well, the same thing happens over here. Your y is maybe a 10 here, and a 9, and an 8, and a 5, and a 4, and a 2, and a 1. Your y is getting really, really close to being a 0, but it's not going to get it, so that's why there's no equal sign. And then when you go this way, up, 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 your y's get greater. Okay? So if your equation does not have a plus or a minus in the back, your domain, your range, and your asymptote will always look something like what we just had here. But if we see something in the back, now we could see something up here too, but I'm not even going to do that. If we saw something up here, it would move the graph left or right, but I'm just going to focus on the back. The plus would make the graph go up, and the minus would make the graph go down, which we know that from our quadratics. The number in the back makes the graph go up when it's a plus and down when it's a minus. So when the graph goes up or down, the asymptote moves on you. So see how this graph, it's not touching or coming close to touching the x-axis anymore. It's coming close to touching this guy. So this is its new asymptote. And this one, it's not coming close to touching the x-axis. It's coming close to touching this guy up here. All right? So I'm just going to make up a value. So I'm just going to put some little tick marks in. 1, 2, 3. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so just to practice, Let's see if we can figure out the equation to this horizontal asymptote. So it's a horizontal line, so it's going to be y equals, and what's your y value everywhere right here? It's -3. Let's look at this one. It's a horizontal line, so it's hoi, so it's y equals, and what's your y value everywhere right here? A 4. Now, I just made up these little tick marks, so that was just me making that up, so we didn't know that prior to me doing that. Let's look at domain and range. This graph is going forever to the left, forever to the right, so the domain is all reals. This graph is going forever to the left, forever to the right, so the domain is also all real numbers. Have you noticed that the domain is always all real numbers? And it will be every time. Now let's look at range. So up here my y is maybe a 8 and a 6 and a 5, and here my y is a 0, here my y is a -1, -2, and then my y is getting really, really close to touching a y value of -3, but it's not going to touch it, so no little equals. And then when you go up, 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 your y's get greater. This one, my y is really low down here, but it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the y gets really close to being a 4, but it's not going to ever be a 4. So the y gets close to being a 4, but not going to be it, so no equal sign. But what happens to your y's when you go this way? When you go down, 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 your y's get less. Okay, so in the next several problems, we're going to focus on a few things. If the equation does not have a plus or minus in the back, your x-axis will always be the horizontal asymptote. So our domain and range answers will always look something like this. But if you have a plus or minus in the back, that horizontal asymptote either moves down or that horizontal asymptote moves up. And that means that instead of it being y equals 0, it's going to be something else. All right, let's see what we can do here. All right, so looking at number 1, I'm asking for several things here. So, looking at this, growth or decay? It's growth. It's going upwards from left to right. I also know that my b value is bigger than 1. So that's another way to know it's growth. Okay, what do you think the y-intercept is? 0, what? 2. I know that the y-intercept is where the graph touches the y-axis, and I can see it's a 2. I also know it's a 2 because remember how the a value is always the y-intercept? So I can find my y-intercept either from the equation or from the graph. All right, see how there is no plus or minus in the back of this? So that means that our x-axis is our horizontal asymptote. And it's a horizontal line, so it's a hoi, so it's going to be y equals, and everywhere on this line, our y has a value of 0. So looking at domain, this graph goes forever to the left, forever to the right, so it's all real numbers. Now, I know we don't have arrows on any of these graphs. That's just because that program doesn't do it, but we're going to pretend that there's arrows. Now let's talk about range. So here my y is a 6, here my y is a 4, here my y is a 2, and then it starts coming down, and what does the y get really, really close to being? The y gets really close to being a 0, because if I was to touch the x-axis, that's what the y value would be. And then when you go this way, up, 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 your y's get greater. Now, one thing I want you to know, whatever this number is here for the asymptote, that will also be the range number. I'll point that out as we keep going along. Okay, let's try another. All right, this next one. Let's start with the easy guy. Growth or decay? It's decay. It's going down from left to right. I also know it's decay because my b value is between 0 and 1. Okay, how about the y-intercept? What is that? The y-intercept is 1, so 0, 1. And I also know that that's the y-intercept because the 1 is your a value, and the a value is your y-intercept. Okay, do you see how this equation has no plus or minus in the back? That means that the horizontal asymptote is going to be the x-axis. So it's a horizontal line, so it's a HOI, so y equals. And what's our y value everywhere on the x-axis? The y is a 0 because you're not up and you're not down. Okay, domain. Remember, pretend that there's arrows on these graphs. It goes forever to the left, forever to the right. So the domain is all real numbers. And then let's think about range. So my y up here is a 10. Here my y is a 5. Here my y is a 1. And then the y is coming down. And the y is getting really, really close to being a what? The y is getting really close to being a 0. But it's not going to equal it. So don't put an equal sign. And then when you go this way, you're going up, 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 up. So your y's get greater. And remember, whatever this number is here for the asymptote, that's also going to be that number for the range. Okay, I want to jump down to number 4 because I don't want this video to take forever. Now, this time, we have some different things happening here. So let's look at this one. Do you think we have growth or decay? We have growth. It's going uphill from left to right. It's growing from left to right. I also know that it's growth because the b is bigger than 1. Now, what do you think the y-intercept is? The y-intercept is right here where the graph touches the x-axis. And do you know what that is? It's 0, 7. But do you notice that that doesn't match the a value this time? So let's talk about why it doesn't. It's because of this guy in the back. Do you remember how the number in the back makes your graph go up or down? Well, this makes your graph go up 4. So when our y-intercept should have been at the 3, well, this plus 4 in the back made it go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which puts it at 7. Okay, so that means that our x-axis is not the asymptote anymore. The x-axis, the asymptote is getting shifted up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So our asymptote has got shifted up 4, just like the y-intercept got shifted up 4. So if your equation does not have a plus or minus in the back, then the x-axis will be your asymptote every time, which is the equation y equals 0. But if your equation has a plus or a minus in it, then this x-axis horizontal asymptote will shift up on you, or it will shift down. Okay? So this time, it's still a horizontal line, so it's still y equals. But what is this y value right here? This y value is a 4. And I know it's a 4 because I can see that it's a 4 right here and here and here and here and here and here. I also know it's a 4 because it went up 4. So if it's normally at y equals 0 and you go up 4, then that puts you to a 4. All right, domain, what do you think? All real numbers. The graph goes forever to the left, forever to the right. So domain is all real numbers. Now range. My y right here is a 7. My y right here is a 5. But then it's getting lower. What y value is the graph coming close to touching? The y value is coming close to touching at the 4, but it's not going to touch. So don't put an equal sign. And then what happens when your graph goes up, 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 up? The y's get greater. Now, do you remember how I've been telling you that whatever this asymptote number is, that's also going to be your range number? Those two will always be the same. Because your y is coming close to touching that line, but it's not going to touch it. Okay, let's look at one more. All right, looking at number 5 here. Growth or decay? Decay. It's going down from left to right. I also know it's decay because my b value is not bigger than 1. It's somewhere between 0 and 1. Okay, what do you think the y-intercept is? the y-intercept is 1, so 0, 1. Now, if you look at just the equation, you would think that the y-intercept would be a 4, right? But what does this minus 3 in the back make the graph do? It makes the graph go down 3. So if your y-intercept should have been up here at 4, like the equation says, and it goes down 3, 1, 2, 3, well, that's how it lands at 0, 1. Okay, let's talk about the equation of the asymptote. So remember, if you don't see anything back here, just looks like this, then the x-axis is the asymptote. But the asymptote is going to go down 3. So 1, 2, 3. So now my asymptote has moved down 3. So this is y equals, because it's a horizontal line, and your y everywhere right here is negative 3. What do you think the domain is? All real numbers, forever to the left, forever to the right. Now let's talk about range. So up here your y is a 5, here your y is a 1, here your y is a negative 1, and it goes down and down and down. What does your y value getting close to touching? The y value is getting close to touching a negative 3, but it won't get there, so don't put in equals. And then what happens when you go up, 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 up? The y's get greater. So remember, whatever this number here is for the asymptote, that's always going to be that y value on your range. Okay, so if you don't see numbers in the back of the equation, the asymptote will be right on the x-axis, y equals 0. But as soon as you start seeing numbers in the back, it moves that asymptote up or down. This one moved the asymptote up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why it's now at y equals 4. This one, you see a minus 3 in the back. So instead of the asymptote being here on the x-axis, it went down 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's why it's here at y equals negative 3 now. Okay, so what I want you guys to try for me is I want you to try number 6 and number 7, doing the same thing that I just did. And then when you are done with your work, I want you to take a picture of it and post to Canvas. And that's all for today. Smiley face.